Hi everyone, I'm Callie Kim. We've got an emergency in the garden. A heat wave is here, not only in my garden, but in your garden too, all over the country. Today I'm going to share with you my 3 secret weapons to help our gardens survive the heat. It's do or die time, gardeners. Let's go. When temperatures soar over 90 and into the triple digits, your garden is under stress. When your garden is under stress, you're going to see wilting, leaf burn, stunted growth, rapid evaporation of water, and your plants just aren't going to do as well. So by doing these 3 things, it can make a difference between plants that survive and thrive in the heat or that die in the heat. My secret weapon number 1 is strategic watering. So I'm going to water at optimal times and using the best methods to minimize evaporation in the plant and to reduce my garden stress. First thing I'm going to do is water in the morning. That way the plant has the water that it needs to make it through the heat of the day. The plant's tissues will be nice and plumped up and hydrated and will really go a long way towards reducing the stress on the plant. You always want to water deeply because that way the plant's roots have the water that it needs to make it through the stress of the day. Let it sink in so it gets all the way to the roots, and then hit it with water again. This will water your plants deeply and encourage deep root growth, as opposed to a quick little sprinkle, which just doesn't do the trick and won't hydrate your plants deeply enough to help them survive a heat wave. Strategic watering also involves bumping up the frequency of your watering. For example, here in my drip irrigation system, it waters my entire garden. I've got 3 zones. When the temperatures are 85 or under, I water once a day for 20 minutes. However, in extreme heat, over 90 degrees, that gets bumped up to once a day, but I increase the time to 30 minutes. And I may even run on the manual setting in the middle of the day for about 10 minutes or so, just so the garden gets some extra hydration during the hottest part of the day. My containers, however, are in a whole separate system. They dry out faster, they need watering a lot more often. So I've got them watered in regular heat under 80 degrees once a day for 15 minutes, but in extreme heat, I bump that up to once a day for 20 minutes. However, a lot of times by the end of the day, as the sun is setting in extreme heat, the containers are completely dried out. So I'll hit them on manual and run it for about 10 minutes so they get a nice drink before we all go to bed. And all of my drip timers are set to run very early in the morning. I think they start off about 3:30. I've got 4 different zones, so it takes a couple hours to water them. So that way the plants, again, have all the water they need to make it through the heat of the day. The third component to my strategic watering plan is what I like to call hydration stations. Now, these are containers that aren't hooked up to drip for whatever reason. I like to move them around the garden from time to time. And I group them here in a semi-shaded spot and put them in bins to make it easier on me to water them, but also to make it easier on the plants. They can soak up the water from the bottom, get fully hydrated, and stay nice and cool in the heat of the day. And as they soak up the water, the soil changes from a light brown color. This container is very dry. You can tell here the soil is light brown, to a nice dark brown color, which indicates that it's full of moisture. Then after they soak up the water, pour this water off onto another container so that it can get hydrated too, and then keep an eye on it, and I may need to fill this once or twice a day during the extreme heat. Here I've got a hydration station set up next to my house for my backup plants and my seedlings. Fill it up with water so they can stay hydrated and cool during the heat of the day. Another component of a strategic watering plan is to use drip trays, especially for container plants. So this one here is on a drip irrigation system. However, sometimes it doesn't get quite enough water. So by putting a drip tray underneath, it can catch any water that comes into the plant and then continue to soak it up through the heat of the day. And with containers, properly hydrating them can really make a difference between dead container plants and plants that continue to produce even in the heat. This one is loaded down with beautiful banana legs tomatoes, they're called. My secret weapon number 2 is mulch. I cannot say enough good about the benefits of mulch in your garden, but especially in extreme heat. Now here in the fountain planter, it really takes the brunt of the heat. And by adding a couple inches of mulch around the base of my pepper plants, it's going to not only keep the roots cooler, reducing stress on the plant, but also help tremendously with water evaporation. But the mulch here around my peppers is just a little bit thinner than I would like, and I want to add an extra layer of protection in this extreme heat wave we're experiencing. So I've got about 3 inches here around the base of my pepper plants, which not only reduces water evaporation, meaning that the plants are going to have the water it needs to make it through the heat of the day, but also keeps the plant's roots cool, which will reduce stress and help my peppers not just survive the heat wave, but thrive and continue to produce during the heat wave. You can use any type of organic matter for mulch. Shredded leaves are one of my favorites, but I'm running out of leaves at this time of the year. So I've opted for shredded straw. You can also use pine needles if you have a lot of trees in your garden. But the shredded straw is really nice. It says Easy Straw. I really like it. I grabbed it on Amazon. It's 100% pet safe, so Matt can go sniffing around in it. And it's clean, it's easy to carry around, and very convenient in this bag. Now my container here needs an extra layer of mulch too. Containers tend to dry out, especially around the edges. And the goal is to not have any bare soil during extreme heat. So I'm going to add a little bit of extra here so my watermelon keeps on going. It's just starting to produce flowers. I would really hate those flowers to dry up, and then I have to start all over again with my little baby watermelon. I'm just adding a couple extra inches here so that my container stays nice and hydrated and happy. My secret weapon number 3 for extreme heat is providing shade for your plants. And shade cloth is one of my favorite ways to do that. Now, providing shade for your plants can really go a long way towards reducing heat stress and sunburn. But the most important thing is it helps reduce blossom drop. Now, when temperatures go above 85 or 90 degrees, the blossoms on plants, especially plants like tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants, tend to dry up and drop off. And since the blossoms are what produces the fruit, if your blossoms dry up, you're starting all over with fruit production. Now, shade cloth goes a long way towards preventing that. So what I like to do is wrap my plants or cover my plants in shade cloth and clip them to existing structures with little binder clips like this or little jaw clips. We've actually run some tests. When it's 100 degrees in the sun, under the shade cloth, when I put this heat sensor underneath, it stays about 20 degrees cooler. So 79 degrees underneath the shade cloth, which is a perfect temperature for them, and it's going to completely prevent that blossom drop and keep the plants nice and cool and happy. They won't be wilted, they won't be stunted, and it'll keep them producing through the heat wave. You can see how happy my tomatoes look, and it can really make a difference to you being able to grow tomatoes or other vegetables in extreme heat, or not being able to grow them, or have dead plants. Installing shade cloth is a lot easier than you think. You don't have to install a permanent shade cloth structure. Just use your existing trellises. So here I'm just clipping a piece of shade cloth to my tomato string trellis, and this is a 60% block, which means it blocks out 60% of the sun's UV rays, but it still does allow some sunlight to get through so my tomato plants can continue to grow. So I'm just clipping this to my structure here. I like to use these jaw clips. In this particular structure, I am just wrapping my shade cloth all the way around. I'm going to secure it at the corner with the rock to hold it in place. And then clip it to the other side. I always like to put a few bricks at the bottom just in case the wind blows. You want to cover as much of your plants as possible to minimize damage. The other way I like to install shade cloth is as a canopy. Now the A-frame trellis is fairly tall, the watermelon is growing up it, and I definitely want to protect that watermelon in the heat. Now the sun comes from this direction in the heat of the day. So this is the most important side to make sure is covered during the hottest parts of the day. So I haven't covered the front, because that'll be shaded naturally, but I did create a canopy by clipping a piece of shade cloth to the A-frame and then installing a post on the hill up above here to create a nice little easy up for my plants. Now when I go underneath here, it's so nice and cool. It's a nice place to take a little break. The pollinators can still get under here on the salvia. I can take a little nice hydration break and keep nice and cool while I'm gardening. For my chill zone raised bed that I want to be able to access during the heat, I've installed a semi-permanent shade structure. And let me show you what I've done here. I put 4 poles in my raised bed. These are, I think, about 10-foot poles that I grabbed from a local garden center, and then just draped a very large piece of shade cloth. I believe this is about a 40% block over the top. And then coming around this side, it still allows access under here, stays nice and cool, but allows access for me to be able to tend to my diva tomatoes, which need constant clipping up during the heat, to be able to give this garden a little bit of extra water. But keeps the plants and me nice and cool. I'm working in the garden. The chill zone raised bed is shaded in the morning, but gets the extreme heat in the afternoon. So there's no need to cover that side, but this side is fully covered, and you definitely want to get all the way down to the bottom. Otherwise, your plants at the bottom get singed and sunburned. Once the temperatures drop below 90 degrees, I'll take the shade cloth off, and I like to keep them organized in several storage bins with lids. And I also keep the different pieces labeled with some painter's tape and a permanent marker, so I know exactly which garden bed they go on. Get creative when it comes to shade cloth. If you don't have enough of the shade cloth that allows sunlight to get through, just grab an old bed sheet or an old pair of curtains and cover your plants with that. Now, it won't allow sunlight to get through like regular shade cloth, but in a pinch, it'll work just fine. Now, I ran out of shade cloth here by my dahlias. They're newly planted and they will definitely die in the extreme heat. So I'm just gonna place some of my patio furniture as a barrier to shade them in the hot afternoon sun. The other item you can use is just your standard variety patio umbrella. Pop it up during the day, provides a nice little shade canopy for your plants. This one is about 10 feet wide and it's tiltable, which allows me to adjust it depending on where the sun is during the middle of the day. And then I can take it down at night so my plants can breathe and we can all relax and enjoy the cool evening together. Extreme heat can be very stressful on the garden and very stressful on the gardener too, but it's nice and cool under here. So comment below and let me know which one of my 3 secret weapons you'll be implementing in your garden in extreme heat. Thanks for watching. See you next time in the garden.